Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice Yao, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. This is the Fierce Woman community where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. If you're new here, I'm Clarice and I help women 40 plus transform their metabolisms, hormones, and body composition in science-backed ways and in a doable way, not crazy diets, but in a sustainable way, okay? And everything you're gonna learn today is actually really supporting what my methodology is. The Fierce Woman methodology, I would say, is about cellular renewal processes. It's just that I explain it in different ways, and you're gonna hear that methodology come out and why we focus on certain things. To kind of get the terms right, chronological age is your actual age on your driver's license, on your birth certificate, what you on paper look like, right? So you can't change that, that's fixed. But your biological age is what your cells are telling you, how old your cells are and how they're operating. Okay, so that's why you could be chronologically a certain age, but you really inside could be, I wrote this on my teaser yesterday, you could be 64 or 49, and your body could be operating at maybe 30, or it could also be operating at 10 years older. So you could be, 49 operating at 59 inside. And so this is actually super important because, of course, all of us would love to have our bodies function younger, right? So that's kind of the topic of today. And I want to give you guys something to think about. So biological age actually reflects a number of things. So number one, your cellular health. It reflects your inflammation levels. It reflects your mitochondrial function. It reflects your hormones, your cardiovascular fitness, your metabolic health, and your DNA methylation processes. So I am going to talk about all this today because your biological age is fully reversible. So, like, you can reverse your age, which is kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool. So, it is changeable and it is all determined on how your cells behave. And your biological age is actually your real age. So, when people ask you, what's your real age? If you find out your biological age and you tell them your biological age, you're not lying. So if my biological age is actually 25, I'm going to say I'm 25 because scientifically speaking, that's my real age. Does that make sense? Because you could be on paper chronologically a certain age, but inside all your cellular functions like a 25-year-old. So your real age is what's actually inside your cells. Okay. So if you think that's really cool, or I had a lot of people message me on Instagram, people who never messaged me, like my dance friends, were like, tell me more about this biological age, right? Like even like young dancers want to know their biological age, which is kind of cool. So I hope you is finding that interesting. So let's talk a little bit at, what is actually, the biological age. Let's first dive into some foundation things. Okay, so biological age. So biological age actually measures your epigenome, which is just a fancy way of how your genes are being expressed. Okay, so your biological age is measuring the way your DNA is expressing itself in your cellular pathways, cellular structures, all of that. Okay. So you're in terms of like measuring your biological age, what it typically is measuring is the chemical tags on your DNA. Okay, so these chemical tags on your DNA can turn on and off genes, right? This is what the whole science behind epigenetics is the expression of the DNA inside your body. So when you're determining your biological age, a lot of these tests, like the clock, a test, is actually measuring methylation processes and different tags on your DNA. And based on those tags on your DNA, it will be able to tell you about your body's function in stress, in inflammation, in nutrition, toxins, toxin overload, that type of thing, muscle activity, hormones, sleep, and gut health. So your biological age is 100% influenced by your habits. Okay. So this is something that's really cool to obviously think about. Okay. So your biological age is 100% influenced by your habits. So let's talk about 7 areas that will actually affect your biological age. Okay. Has anybody actually ever done a biological age test? Anyone here? No? Because you can get that tested. Just wonder if anybody has actually done a biological test. The first thing that we will look at in terms of determining your biological age is your metabolism and mitochondria, which is your cellular engines. So in your 40s and 50s, your metabolism starts to slow down because your mitochondria, actually the power plant, the energy plant of your body, it's like an old clock, right? It starts to run slower. It starts to not be able to function as well. It slows down more and more though under certain circumstances, and this is under particularly high stress and inflammation in your body. Under high stress and inflammation is why let's control the stress, because if the stress environment or the inflammation environment is not controlled, you will gain fat easier, you will fatigue faster, you can't recover as well, and this is where your biological age starts to climb up. Okay, when you're stressed, when you're inflamed, your biological age goes up. But if you know how to support your body, your mitochondria, which we're going to talk about right away here, you burn fat more efficiently. Your energy will become more stable and you'll feel younger. So if you support your mitochondria, your energy centers, then your biological age can go down. So, meaning right now, all of you, depending on what you do now, and 2 weeks down the road, you can massively still impact your biological age and reverse it or bring it down further. Okay. So, what keeps you young? What helps you improve the mitochondria centers of your body? So, there's a number of things that needs to happen. Number one, if you can create more mitochondria, which is biogenesis, that's going to be really important. If you can increase the efficiency of your mitochondria, so that's how well they burn fuel, that's going to help you as well. How good they are at repairing damage in your body is also another one, and that's part of reducing oxidative stress in your body. And number 4 is energy sensing. So you're meaning your mitochondria, how well your cellular metabolism pathways kind of work together. Okay. So in terms of mitochondria functioning, you want more biogenesis of mitochondria, you want more efficiency, you want more damage control, and more energy sensing, good cellular metabolism pathways. Okay. So what will help this greatly is a number of things. Okay. So first of all, you're not surprised by this, but obviously strength training and movement greatly helps your mitochondrial efficiency. There is something that gets activated called AMPK, an enzyme that actually tells your cells to produce energy more efficiently. When you move, you will automatically kind of push the AMPK process up. But the greatest AMPK process will be coming from strength training. Okay, so from strength training. And so this is why those of you who are strength training, that is already a plus, because you're telling your cells to go produce more energy, to have better mitochondria control, right? Strength training is super important. So if you're not doing strength training, it's gonna be super important if you want to help your mitochondria function better. Walking is also really crucial, but walking doesn't necessarily secrete as much AMPK process, but it activates a different system, a calming system in your body. So there is the strength training, and then there's, the movement base. Also, another thing of increasing your mitochondria efficiency is blood sugar stability. So this is something I talk a lot about, is if you cannot stabilize your blood sugar and how you eat, your body is going to go into a lot of chaos. And this affects it, like it causes basically mitochondrial stress in your body. And this is kind of why, for example, when I see women eat imbalance macros, some of my own clients, as I'm talking to you right now about, and said, make sure it's balanced, make sure things are like this way and this way, you will stress your mitochondria out. Okay. So that's another thing, is making sure the balance and how to balance that is something I teach, right? Macro balancing. And as well, high quality proteins. This goes kind of without saying, but if you have good proteins, you will help yourself have better mitochondrial function. And then proper supplementations. Like I often say, like your omegas are super important. Having proper omegas that support your mitochondrial membranes, energy transfer, and other supplementation, as well as your sleep. So sleep is where the repair happens, right? So if you want better mitochondria and better repair overnight, then, getting enough sleep, getting enough quality sleep and repairing is super important. What is biogenesis? It means the production of more mitochondria in your body. So, Nicole, just as because you get older, it doesn't mean the mitochondria stops producing. You still produce more mitochondria, but as you age, it slows down and the replication process slows down. And this is why it's biological age. If you cannot biogenesis and reproduce a lot of mitochondria, a lot of people in high stress, high inflammation environments, why my focus is so much on this, you will have poor reproduction, basically like having kids. I mean, it is your cells having kids. Your cells are not having kids anymore. And that's how you're going to age faster. You're going to age in your body faster because the mitochondria does not reproduce properly or enough. Okay. So that's basically what that biogenesis is. And this is why focusing on these factors is super, super important. What doesn't help? So, like, what are some of the things that does not help your mitochondrial biogenesis replication process? Okay, so I'm going to say this, and some women will be like, agree with me 100%, and some will not agree because it's all over the internet, right? Is fasting for hormonally dysregulated women is not a good choice. Now, the science behind fasting is fascinating. No play on words there. Fasting is fascinating because the whole concept of fasting and testing on mice and like these specialists and fasting protocols will talk about how it gets rid of old cells in your body, autophagy, and get rid of these and helps your body renew and have longevity. So longevity experts actually talk about fasting a lot. And so I'm not saying it's not necessarily right. Okay. So, because this is where people get really confused. But I am going to say to you that if you are hormonally dysregulated, you're trying things in your body that further pushes your cortisol up. And what did I just say is in under high stress and cortisol situations, a hormonally dysregulated woman will have worse functioning of their mitochondria. So this is the thing that I always ask is and even the specialists say this, right? Like we say this, these are the science research we found, but everyone is different. So you got to do testing and things in your own body and all of this. And why I say this is that I do believe that if someone is actually hormonally healthy and they're in a really good position, I think that fasting can have great autophagy, and which means cleaning up of cells, which is the science behind fasting. Okay, I get asked this all the time, and longevity experts talk about fasting. But I'm saying here that it is the reason why it cannot work, and a lot of times doesn't work for women and women who undereat, and a lot of women undereat their hormones. Basically, it's like a how to best put it,
Like, it's like as fast as you're putting water in, you're pushing water out, that kind of thought process, right? It's like I'm trying to be better, so I'm going to push water in, but it's also pumping water out. Like it's really not really helping you in the sense of, okay, so it's cleaning up cellular processes and autophagy and all of this stuff, which is good. But if it spikes your cortisol, then it's also slowing down other processes in place. So therefore, is it really good for hormonally imbalanced women? And so this is something I encourage a lot of women, because a lot of women, as they age, they look up longevity experts and things like that, which is fine. And there's a lot of science on this, but always think in terms of menopause is a very specific group of people, which is you, all of you. Maybe not Nicole yet, not really Oshone, but really most of you are in a very specific kind of group. And has there been enough research done on menopausal women for fasting? Or has this been done by a lot of men? And has it been done with a lot of mice? And do you know what I mean? Like, yes, they say like fasting, and like when you try it on the mice and they fast, they live like 2 times longer than the mice that doesn't fast. So I think this is the thing that why I bring it up is because it actually ties into chronological age, biological aging, because basically one of the top topics of extending your biological age is fasting. And those of you who follow me a long time know I'm actually not a big fan, but I'm not against it. I just contextually. Coming back to mitochondrial problems and biogenesis and mitochondria slowdown, what doesn't help is trying to fast, trying to undereat, overtrain, have chronic cortisol, high inflammation, and low muscle mass. I'm going to say those 6 points again, and I want you to identify, do you have any of these possible problems that could cause mitochondria slowdown? Fasting, chronic cortisol, overtraining, undereating, high inflammation, or low muscle mass. Which one could you potentially be? Before I move on, and I'm going to talk about inflammation more later, but this is one of the biggest reasons why inflammation control is super important. Controlling inflammation in your system is not just about controlling stress. Stress is part of it, but learning what inflames your body. So, this is why inflammation has to be controlled. Otherwise, on a cellular level, if you just want me to tell you how much calories you eat, but we don't control what's going on cellularly in your body, you're still going to have major problems. And we need to control the inflammation first, right? And I'm going to add this is that aging is an inflammation disease. And you're like, what? Like aging isn't it natural? Yes, but it is an inflammation disease. It's caused by inflammation in your body that it cannot control anymore, it cannot get rid of, and that you can fully help this process of aging by controlling inflammation. Okay, so that's why I always say inflammation is number one. Secondly, let's go to the next point of what affects your biological age. Hormones. Again, of course, you're like, Clarice, you're a hormone specialist. Of course, you're going to talk hormones. Yes. So, hormones is the midlife control panel. So, imagine a control panel on a big dashboard or on the airplane. The big control panel in the airplane is crazy with lots of buttons and dials and things like that, right? We look at it and we're like, wow, that is crazy. But thank goodness we have this so we can survive in the air. That is how complex your hormone system is like the dashboard of an airplane. There's so many dials, this dial, that dial, boom, 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 right? Affects the wing, what do they call it? The little flap that goes up and down. But like it's like these little things all affect your pathways. So this is really important to understand your hormones and how this kind of connects to your biological age. So your hormones run the show. Estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, and insulin, they're all tied to your biological age. So when estrogen drops, all of you, every one of us, it starts early around 30 ish, mid 30ish. So like it's going to start for you guys too. When estrogen drops, inflammation rises and your visceral fat increases, right? And your whole body becomes more insulin resistant because of this estrogen drop, okay? This estrogen drop affects a lot of channels and, like I said, a lot of pathways. But one of the effects of estrogen dropping is becoming more insulin resistant. So when you become more insulin resistant, this accelerates cellular aging. Okay, so I'm going to take some time to explain about insulin resistant because this is really important, because whether you want it or not, most likely as you age, you're going to become more insulin resistant. And it's really important to understand why. And so the more insulin resistant you are, the more biologically you're older. So all of you who have quite a significant belly fat, this is why you need to tackle that, because it is showing insulin resistance. This tells me that biological age is older. Okay, so let's talk about some major reasons that like cause insulin resistance and kind of what happens. So when cells stop responding to insulin, glucose stays in the bloodstream. We know that, right? So when estrogen drops, your cells don't open as easily. It basically closes off the gates to the cells when you're insulin resistant. Like they don't take in the glucose, and glucose stays in your bloodstream. So when glucose stays in your bloodstream, it sits in your blood, it spikes inflammation, right? The sugar spikes inflammation. It damages your cells called a glycation process. Now, again, glycation processes actually leaves cellular debris and damage. So one of the things here with high sugar, spiking inflammation, sugar sitting into your blood system causes glycation processes, and the mitochondria has to work harder, and therefore it ages faster. So this leads to something called oxidative stress in your mitochondria, and this damages your DNA, your obviously mitochondria, I said it, and your cellular membranes. So basically, when you have insulin resistance and the high blood sugar in your system, you're basically going to get older because of what's happening in the biological process. Okay. Number two is excess glucose equals excess inflammation. Okay. So high blood sugar triggers inflammatory pathways like NF-kB, inflammatory pathways. There's a lot of them. But this one, if you have high sugar, it triggers an inflammatory pathway. And inflammation then continues to damage your cell, create more cellular waste. Like I said, slows repair processes, disrupts hormones, stiffens tissue. So if you ever feel stiff in your tissue, and interferes with energy production. Okay. So you want to think that inflammation is heat on your cells. It's basically those of you who struggle with inflammation, and most of you who have belly fat, already mentioned, by nature, you having a belly fat, having excess here shows me you have inflammation. That, like, I can see right away, like how that inflammation makes you puffy, makes you hold things. And if you have belly fat, it tells me right away you have inflammation in your system. Okay, just to put simply, I mean, there's more layers to this, but just so you understand, June, it isn't just about taking away sugar. It's how you eat. It's the combinations of your food, all of that. How much carb, which types of carbs, how they come together, all of that. Okay. Hopefully that helps all of you as well, because that is something all of you should understand too. It's not just about cutting out sugar, but it's understanding that if you do have higher sugar in your system and insulin resistance, you're basically cooking your cells. We don't want to cook our cells. Yeah. We don't want to cook our cells because you will age a lot faster. Okay. So that's why we must control insulin resistance. And number three is insulin resistance pushes fat into the belly and to the visceral region. And visceral fat is an aging organ. And those of you who follow me a long time know I talk about this. Visceral fat is an organ by itself. Yes, your fat there is a separate organ. And some of you are like, what? Yeah, because it functions independently by itself. It can reproduce and produce more inflammation, it has its own pathways within the visceral fat. That's why having visceral fat is scary, because it is basically an organ that ages you faster and faster if you do not control visceral fat. Okay. So, visceral fat is not passive. Like I said, it's an organ, but I want you to understand that it is very active. And it is not passive. Subcutaneous fat is a little bit more passive. I mean, in the fat cells, they can still produce, but in visceral fat, it actively releases inflammatory cytokines and adipokines and all of these inflammation markers. Okay. And so this is why, if you have a thicker middle, or if you ever watch my live on the 6 types of belly fat, I had spoken about like how your fat sits tells us a lot. And you're thicker all around, you usually have insulin resistance, usually when it's quite thick kind of all around. Yeah. So when you have visceral fat, it raises inflammation, it worsens insulin resistance. It's like a cycle. It disrupts hormones, especially cortisol, estrogen, and thyroid. And it creates this vicious cycle of like, you have more visceral fat. Visceral fat produces more inflammatory molecules, which affects hormones. It worsens hormone signals. The worsened hormone signals further disrupts insulin resistance. Insulin resistance further disrupts the pathway for sugar. Sugar stays in your blood systems, further worsens the visceral fat situation, which further worsens the inflammatory molecules being secreted, and it goes in a very vicious circle. Okay. So everyone who is watching, if you have visceral fat, and cannot emphasize this enough, this is important beyond just aesthetics to get this healed. It can be healed. It's just not so easy. It's not like a quick fix. I said it on one of my videos. It's a hormonal issue. It's a hormonal issue you have to fix. It's not I need to eat less calories, Clarice. I need to suddenly fast. I need to work out harder. We hear this so much. Shona, we are on calls a lot. We hear this so much. I need to go. I'm starting the gym tomorrow, and I'm going to get better at this. And we're like thinking, I don't know, going to the gym is going to help your visceral fat so much. It can help a little bit, but it's like there's so much more, right? And so if you are wanting more help with the visceral fat, put visceral fat below. Okay. Losing weight does not mean you lose visceral fat. Let's be super clear. You can lose 15 pounds off your body and not lose much visceral fat. I've seen this so many times. Women starving themselves, women under eating, women overtraining, getting skinnier in their arms and legs and things like that. But still, I'm just using the phrase of my client. Cindy Hutchinson is not on here, but she used to describe herself as the tomato on toothpicks. Yes? She said it herself. She said, I'm a tomato on toothpick. I'm like, okay. She's like, I do all these diets and I get skinnier and I lose weight on them, but I just can't get rid of my belly. It's like a tomato. And but if anybody has seen the transformation post of Cindy Hutchinson in my program, you will know she went from big belly to flat, in the transformation program, because it wasn't about losing weight. It was about losing the belly, which is a different issue. So again, put visceral fat. I know you guys, some of you put that already, but put visceral fat if you want more help on this, because it is a complex process. Number 4 is insulin resistance makes mitochondria less efficient. So when cells are starved, they cannot take glucose in. Remember what happens. Insulin resistance shuts the gates of your cells. There's a process where it won't let your cells take glucose in. And basically, the sugar recycles into or moves into the bloodstream or stays in the bloodstream. But your cells, your poor cells are starving. It's hungry. And when mitochondria are starved, stressed, or overloaded, they produce less energy, create more oxidative stress, they repair slower, and they die faster. So if your mitochondria dies faster, it cannot produce more. What happens? you get older, you age faster, you biologically inside become older. And the scary part of this is they can predict on some of these biological tests for age, like the Harvard clock, of approximately when you will die. Now, of course, things could change, right? You could change a lot of things in your life to then extend it, and and of course nothing is 100% accuracy, but it's like they can tell in your cells approximately potentially when you might pass away, which is crazy. So your mitochondria is your cellular age clock. And when they suffer, your biological age jumps. So this is why some people 40, and you hear of people 40 passing away, people 50 passing away. And we say things like, but they're so young, they shouldn't have died yet. But inside their body, they are a lot older, right? And yet I know so many, obviously, people, and you do too, because now Instagram shows all the best people who are 80, 90 doing crazy stuff, who function like they're like 40. They're like 80 years old and they're functioning like they're 40 years old, because that's their real age, their biological age, not their chronological age, right? So getting help on fixing your visceral fat, your insulin resistance, which is the topic right now, your insulin resistance. And just because you don't have diabetes does not mean you're not insulin resistant, right? The whole point is that as you age, you become more insulin resistant by natural aging process. So it's learning, how do we protect this mechanism as best as possible, right? And these epigenetics and all of this is like, it's in your hands of what you do, what you invest in. Do you spend money to go travel more and go eat out more, or do you spend money on bettering your health? I always say to people, like when people say I can't afford to, and I go, you can't afford not to. You spend $5,000 on a cruise. I have known people who are saying, oh, I'm going on a cruise next month, and I'm like, okay, how much is that costing you? It's like $3,000. Okay. And this person has massive belly fat and insulin resistant. And I'm thinking, I'd rather you miss your cruise. You take that and invest it in your health. I'm telling you, just your body, your cells are going to age so much faster. And what do you know on the cruise? What do you know? They're going to eat inflammatory foods. They're going to drink wine. They're going to do making it worse. So learn the right knowledge first. Take time, because otherwise your cells die faster, your mitochondria die faster, right? So in short, insulin resistance ages you because it creates inflammation in your system. It damages mitochondria, increases visceral fat, and disrupts hormonal balance. And so, what your body needs, like I said, even if you're not fully insulin resistant yet, is a calm, stable hormone system. I speak about this a lot because it is so crucial. You need a calm, stable hormone system, because this is what will control the insulin response better. The better you can control your insulin response, the younger you'll be. Okay. So the better you can control, the younger you will be. So put calm hormone system if you want to learn how to stabilize your hormone system, which is really the crux of everything I teach is hormones. I always say this, everything comes down to your hormones, the power center of your body. Number 3 is muscle mass. Okay, so we're talking about what affects your biological age. Okay, so now we're on number 3. So number 3 is muscle mass. This isn't surprising, as you know, muscle mass is the most powerful anti-aging tool. Muscle is your metabolic organ. It's not just for aesthetics. It literally prevents your body from aging, right? So more muscle mass means better insulin sensitivity, so helping against the insulin resistance, higher mitochondrial density. So what's biogenesis? When you work out, right, you're creating a position for your body to create more mitochondria. So higher mitochondrial density. It helps lower inflammation if done properly, not crazily. Like I always say, MTP, like you exercise the right way, you lower inflammation, better mobility, faster repair, better hormone balance, and a younger internal age. So muscle building and the process of muscle building basically helps your body stay young and rejuvenate faster, right? Like cellular turnover, more blood flow to all your limbs, your organs, your cells, so we kind of know this, but just as as one of the points, it is really important that you keep up your strength training. A lot of women, obviously, I think it's like a mixed bag. Like I have women who are working out all the time, almost to too much, and I have women who don't work out enough and don't get enough muscle activation. And so it depending on who you are, right? So I think it's just about finding that balance point where you can build muscle but not cause too much stress, which is what I call MTP process, right? Like my menopausal training protocol process. So your workout protocol and the way you need to train will depend completely on your type of lifestyle. Meaning, if you have a more high stress lifestyle, you may need to be careful how much and how you train. But if you have a sedentary or you totally don't do anything, you may need more activation of your body, because of AMPK, like I said, and different processes that turn on the genes for cellular renewal and stuff like that, right? So with muscle mass, I'm not going to go into too much detail because this one I can have a massive topic on. But the only thing I'll say is, again, training for hormones, which was my topic last week, I think, is super important, or the 2 weeks ago, training for hormones. So I want you guys to, again, change your thought process from I need to train for my hormones, because it's about how you train to create the best turnover effect of your body, the best mitochondrial turnover and hormones, right? Like I said, human growth hormone, insulin growth factor, but not spiking cortisol. So that's why I always talk about MTP protocols is really important, of like having the right balance of training. Okay. So if you currently don't have a great structure of training, I would encourage you to talk to us about MTP, because it is really important. It's more than just going to the gym to do a move. Okay. Like, hey, show me squats, show me deadlift. It's more than that. It's more than just doing the move. It is the strategy behind the workout. Does that make sense? It's the strategy behind the workout. So we need to have strategy behind the way you program your workouts to where it's influencing the best turnover rate for your body. Okay. So put MTP below if you want to understand better the menopausal training protocol, training for your hormones. Okay. So the next thing, number 4, is inflammation. Okay. So I gave it its own category because they actually test for this in biological aging, is inflammation levels in your body. Okay. Inflammation levels in your body is the real driver of aging. So, high inflammation accelerates biological age, it damages DNA, disrupts hormones, slows metabolism, and stresses mitochondria. So, this is why in the 14-day and all the programs and the ones that continue onwards, we focus a lot on understanding the role of proper protein, of understanding in the bio revive system, understanding supplementation, like what kinds of supplements is going to really help with controlling inflammation. When we are talking about inflammation in your system, it's like we need to know how to control proper macros, proper fiber, proper supplementation, how to remove inflammatory foods, improving gut health, and balancing blood sugar. Now, if you're listening to this and you are like, I need to understand, you know, macros, supplementation, reducing bloat foods, improving gut mobility, balancing blood sugars, having proper workout protocols. It's because there's so many factors. And this is why it's like it gets really complex for someone to start to try to look at multiple factors. So that's why I always say, like, have a system. Because if you don't have a system, you're going to run yourself in circles because it's so complex. Again, think of an airplane panel, right? The airplane panel with all the dials. If you don't have a system of which dial to turn first, which dial to turn next, which dial needs to be pressed this way, how much to press that dial, the plane could crash, correct? But yet we have people go like, I know how to do this. Slap, 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 slap the airplane panel. And you're like, no, like, the emoji with the face palm, that's what I think in my brain sometimes, but in a nice way, just like more out of concern for you guys, but like a face palm because I'm like, I I hear things and I'm like, wow, is that's kind of like going onto airplane and being like, I'm gonna hit that, I'm gonna hit this, I'm gonna hit this, I'm gonna hit this, and then not having a structure to it. If you do it in sometimes the wrong order, you're going to affect more things than good. This is why I mentioned like about there has to be timing of food, there has to be what you tackle first, the four pillar approach, systems and protocol behind how you do things and not just slap the airplane buttons around, okay? And sometimes I'll give you an example when I see sometimes people turn the dial too fast is like pushing a button too fast is like, oh, Clarice said, I have to control sugar. I have to control carbs. I'm just not going to eat carbs. And it's like, no, 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 slow down. That's not what I said. Don't turn off the carbs. That's not what I said. And then, or I say like, maybe you need to have good fats in your body. And suddenly I'm seeing some people's profiles with massive amounts of fats. And I'm like, okay, now we're going overboard on fats, guys. Like, no, 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 calm down, calm down. Okay. This is this type of stuff. Same thing with protein. All the protein experts says protein is so important. And I do agree a lot of women undereat protein. However, there are a few select that I have seen that have gone overboard in protein. And then that affects all their other nutritional absorptions and absorptions of other vitamins because certain vitamins depend on fats and other things, right? So now they've gone overboard the other way, right? So this is what I mean is like, you ever see those whack-a-moles? Like those little like I played that when I was little, those little moles that pop up and you're like whack, 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 whack. I feel like sometimes this is why it's hard to teach generally and I try to explain as best as I possible, but you notice I always tell people I can't tell you the specific till I work with you because I don't want people to go to do things wrong and like, oh, I have to do this and she said this and then we have to do this and I have to do this and then I dial this and then this, and but they're not knowing the degree of the dialing, and it causes a lot of systemic cortisol stress to your system, right? And this is what I'm trying to say is you need a system and you need to know how to properly structure this so that that you follow a certain pattern, right? So now we're going to number 5 of what they measure in biological age is the next thing is gut health. They're going to measure gut health, your internal communication network, okay? Your internal communication network. So your gut controls everything, a lot of things. It controls your estrogen recycling, it controls your inflammation, it controls your immunoaging, which just means like what molecules are secreted that can affect your aging, your brain health, and your nutrient absorption. Notice that I said gut health and I mentioned brain health. And those of you who watch my gut health lives know I speak a lot about the gut brain axis. So, how fast you age in your brain, ladies, comes from your gut. Yes, ladies, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all of this is highly impacted by what happens in your gut. So you want to live longer, have a healthier brain, not have brain fog. We need to be super diligent about gut, about what happens in your gut. An unhappy gut will cause a lot of problems from the inside out. And this is kind of why you need to know how to combine foods together. I talked about balancing foods, lowering bloat triggers, knowing how to create the right microbiome environment for your body, because the microbiome, the millions and millions of microbiome in your gut will determine a lot of things. And you will colonize or decolonize certain microbiomes by what you eat. So if you don't eat quite properly, or some of you who really like bars, who really like shakes, you are potentially training your gut a certain way. And so I would just say be very careful what you put in your body, okay? Because if you have certain gut microbiome in your gut system, it can either help you absorb better or deter you from absorbing better. And I want you to remember this, okay? This is a very crucial line that I want all of you to hear me out on. It's not even just what you eat, it's what you absorb. You guys all heard me on that? Yes? It's not what you eat, it's what your body absorbs. If your body cannot absorb the nutrient, poor microbiome, leaky gut syndrome, inflamed gut lining, constipation, I see here, poor stool, poor passage, poor fiber uptake, poor all this gut situation, you might not be absorbing. You might be eating it, but not absorbing it very well. This is going to cause hormonal situations in your body. We need to optimize gut health. This is the key, is optimize gut health. A lot of people take supplements as well, and there's a lot of different forms of supplements like chelation processes, glycinates, biglycinates, and like processes of supplementation. And certain supplements are absorbed better in your body, certain forms are absorbed better in your body than others. So I always say to people, like, learning what is better for your body, what absorbs better, bioavailability of your macronutrients and your micronutrients is super important, so that you're not just eating but ending up still being deficient because your gut health is not there, or you're not really aware of which type of supplements or type of food creates the largest bioavailability for your body. Okay. So if you are wanting to learn how to improve your gut health, I want you to put gut health below. Okay. This is the basis, just so you know, of why I created 14-day and then obviously built 21-day and then BioRevive system. That system was built with the whole inflammation gut health in mind, to help someone who cannot do custom coaching. You know, some of the ladies are in my custom coaching, but people who can't do custom coaching, that is why I built, 14-day, 21-day, and BioRevive system, was because of these principles around your gut health is so important, right? So put gut health below. Okay. So now number 6 is stress and cortisol. So stress and cortisol, as I said earlier, is super important, but they assess this in biological test and aging. Okay. Your stress and cortisol are the silent agers. So nothing ages women 40 plus faster than cortisol chaos. And this is why, and a lot of my ladies that I personally coach, I'm very proud of them because they really work on it. The ones long term with me have systemized a lot of things. They really work on cortisol. But the ones who are newer with me, I'm always on them for like, okay, don't worry, like calm down, like just go for your walk, like just like control the mindset, because women are actually highly cortisol sensitive, unlike men. I know, again, a little bit like, darn it, why weren't we guys born as guys? But we actually, there's parts of us that we also enjoy being women too, of course. But like, where our systems, our nervous systems as women are primed for high cortisol like situations and all that, partly as a mom, but like mothers and kind of like that biological process, but also our nervous system, we are more emotional, we more process feelings deeper, we reflect more, we work through, we're more most women have more people pleasing tendencies, they have more self-sabotaging tendencies, they have just a lot of internal emotional language, and so they get stressed more easily. They want to be perfect, recovering perfectionists, or they want certain things to be done a certain way. I know many women are, they want to control things, and this creates massive cortisol stress even when you don't think you're stressed. So nothing will cause you to age faster than stress. High cortisol steals your estrogen. It disrupts your sleep, it increases inflammation, and pushes fat into your belly. So high cortisol damages epigenetic markers, the switches that determines your biological age. Okay, so this is why I don't recommend prolonged fasting for women with hormonal imbalance, right? Your system doesn't need more chaos, it needs more stability. And that is a big principle within my coaching is I'm always trying to stabilize your system more versus causing more chaos, right? So this comes down to a lot of things about stability, like how you eat throughout the day, about how your meals are done, and how you put food together. So there's something I always say, there's quality, quantity, and timing of food all matter, because it's what you put in the body, but how you put the combinations, and when you eat, how you operate during the day, what is your lifestyle like, how does this all come together affects stress and cortisol, right? And of course, don't get me wrong, stress comes from a lot of other things too, but one of the ones that is the largest marker is nutrition. The stress that comes from nutrition, right? So that's number 6 is stress and cortisol. Number 7 is sleep. So in terms of biological aging, this is really where the anti-aging actually happens. So preventing your aging is in your sleep. Okay. Sleep is where your mitochondria repairs your hormones, rebalances everything, helps your detoxification pathways to open. If you don't sleep well, you will accelerate your aging, and good sleep, you will have good biological rejuvenation. Now, it's easier said than done, of course. Some people sleep very well, some people don't. Even for me, I don't sleep as not well. I sleep really well, but I just don't get enough sleep. This is one part that's like always my biggest issue is sleep. So you're all gonna have an Achilles heel where one of these things you're like, I'm just not good and I need to improve in this area. But sleep is where mitochondria repair happens, your hormone balance, your detoxification pathways. And so rest, recovery, understanding how to properly put your system in the right mode is super important. I think the thing to remember is there's certain things that you can do closer to your sleep time, and things that you can eat or the way you eat that can really help your body with getting into deeper sleep and setting your body in proper hormones for that. Okay. So that was number 6. And number 7 is what will determine your biological age is your nutrition. And even though I've already said a lot of this above, it's like basically I'm just giving you categories to think about because they all intersect each other, right? But your nutrition is your cellular instructions. So when you eat what you eat, the raw materials become the raw materials for your cells. So, like I said, it's not just what you eat, but it's what you absorb. But also what you eat, the quality of it becomes the quality of your cells. So if you don't eat really good, or you go to, I don't know, fast food, or you are not aware of inflammatory markers in your food, these all accumulate in your system. And so we want to make sure that you have high quality proteins, that you are very aware of good antioxidants, minerals, again, good support like omegas, like I talked about, things and supplementations that support mitochondrial repair is really important. And so again, for example, the ones in my transformation program, and you know, the ones that eventually get a list from me of sort of what direction of foods I like you to go in, there's a reason why I recommend it in that direction of certain like these are the protein macros, and these are the carbs and carb macros, and these are the fat macros, because we want to get you the best quality of food and nutrition in your body, the best raw material. And again, trying your best to not go always to all these like bars and shakes and all of that. Sometimes you need it, and if it's like a good anti-inflammation, like it doesn't have any inflammatory markers in there, I will still approve, and I agree some can be good. But you just want to make sure you get good high quality things right in your body, and not just like put a lot of chemicals and stabilizers and like preservatives and natural flavors. Like, don't get fooled when you see those natural flavors on the back of your label. I tell you, ladies, there's a lot of things on these things that just it's problematic for your system, right? So nutrition is your cellular instruction, and so you have to know macro combinations. You need to know how to put them together. You need to have, good quality, and certain ones work better together than other ones. And so again, if you want to learn more about macros, I would put macros below, because your nutrition is giving your cells instruction manual. Okay? So if you eat a certain way, or if your snacks are a certain way, a lot of my clients, I know I'm on you for your snacks. All my clients who are listening are like, well, I know you were just on me for this. If your snacks are a certain way, then you may be sending different cellular instructions to your cells. Okay. So put macros below if you want to learn more about macros to better, again, help your aging process, protect the youth and vitality of your cells as much as possible. Okay, so those are 7 biological things that they can test for, or markers or areas that they will test for biological age. Okay, they crossed over. If you notice, I talked about inflammation, talked about nutrition, and then later I talked about nutrition and talked about this, and then I later talked about cortisol and stress, and I talked about it earlier. Why? Because again, it's one intricate system, that there's many things that will determine your biological age, and that you have to be tested for to determine all of these things. Now that we talked about the 7 areas that impact your biological age, I'm going to talk about some testing methodology. Okay, and if you're enjoying this, tell me what you like learning, what's really cool. Oh, I know the analogy, you guys love the airplane analogy, I like that. But tell me what you love, what you enjoy, and if this really helps you, just share this group with others, in terms of like, inviting them to the group. And this you can share the live, but if they're not like the live, when I repost the replay link, you can grab the replay link. But if they're not in the community, they have to obviously join the community to be able to watch it. But so it's not sharing this live, because this live will close in like 10 minutes here. But like when I post the replay, you can then share it with others, right? So I just ask that you guys, if it is helping you, share it with others, or post in your stories, or, help spread the word, because obviously, I spend a lot of time trying to give you guys the best information in the most digestible format, in the most understandable way, like the airplane analogy, in something that is super complex. Like this type of stuff, your eyes cross, your ears will cross, your everything crosses when you read some of the science papers, and this NCRA like pathway with this DNA methylation process and epigenome, blah blah blah, 65443 allele this, and like your eyes cross, your teeth, everything crosses, your teeth cross. And so I try my best to make it understandable to you guys in the most layman term, so that you can be like, okay, I understand what's going on. Now I know what I need to do to try to work on the situation. Yes. So, yes, always share with me what you love, what you like to learn. That always helps direct my future lives and what I share. Okay. So, how we measure your biological age. Okay. So, what are the 3 main methods to test for your biological age? So there are three main methods, but only one gold standard. So the gold standard one is the DNA methylation testing protocol. So the three main methods, the gold standard is number one, which is the DNA methylation testing process. This is used by companies like True Age, Inside Tracker, Elysium, and Thorn. So basically, they will take like a blood sample and they will actually measure your methylation patterns on your DNA. So, what does this mean? Essentially, it's chemical tags that accumulate on your genome over time, attach to your DNA helix. If you watched my DNA live on Instagram, the one that was crazy, the one I was in my yellow dress, that one is crazy, but it's super cool because I talked a lot about methylation process and how it attaches to the helix, and like what determines what attaches to where is based on a lot of the signals it's receiving on inflammation and what's happening in the body, hormones and stuff like that. So the labs are measuring the methylation patterns on your DNA. And these tags that are attached to your DNA will tell your report or the DNA report what's actually happening in your system, like systemic inflammation, stress exposure, lifestyle, toxin exposure, sleep, exercise, nutrition, and hormonal health. So, why is it so accurate, right? So, like I mentioned this before, the most accurate one is Harvard clock. This is one of the most accurate biological age tests. I have the number wrong, but it's 360 or 300 something DNA strands it will test. So it's quite intense. And it will test aging speed, chronic disease risk, premature mortality, like will you die early, how much inflammation in your body is carrying, and even how your body will respond to lifestyle interventions. So this test, like the Harvard clock, can tell you actually like you're aging at 0.92 biological years per calendar year, like by what rate you're aging by. That's how accurate some of these tests are, which is crazy, right? Like you're like, by what amount am I aging right now? Am I going backwards or am I going forward? So second is Harvard, Harvarth, Harvard clock testing. So number two is blood biomarkers can also test your biological age, which is your typical blood work, but it is less accurate but helpful. So this is the stuff we do get normally, like blood work, like glucose, HbA1c, insulin, lipids, CRP, C-reactive proteins, creatine, liver enzymes. Like these are pretty standardized testing you can get from your doctors, and hormone levels. These tests use algorithms to estimate your biological age based on metabolic and organ function markers in the blood. So these are a lot more easy to get and less pricey, but is not fully as accurate. If you want the full snapshot, some of the ones I mentioned before is the most accurate when they're actually testing the DNA methylation process versus just what's happening in your bloodstream. So actually on that note, this is why I say this, okay, is like blood work is really important. It is really important. I'm going to get one in a few weeks here. It's the easiest one to get to understand some things within your body and can tell you a lot, right? But it is not the full picture. So this is why sometimes and many times for menopausal women, they always tell me my blood work came back normal, but yet they tell me I'm gaining weight. I feel bloated all the time. I have belly fat. I feel miserable. I feel like I have hot flashes. I have brain fog. They tell me all these things, but their blood work is normal. And so this is why always say to people is like, just understand it's like one test in time. It doesn't fully reflect everything. Because, for example, if you do what I just mentioned here, it's going to show you some markers, but it cannot really show you some of the methylation on the tags on the DNA unless you do those other types of testing, right? So just be aware of this. And why I say this for all of you is like, because sometimes we can get fooled on saying, I feel something is wrong with my body. I don't feel great, but the doctor said it was okay, or my blood work came back normal, right? I think I said this on one of my lives before, but I'm going to say it again. My dad struggled with coughing a lot for about 9 months before they found he had lung cancer. And he went to multiple doctors to get tested and tested again. And he was low in certain things, but they're like, it's normal, you're aging. You know, how many of you have heard that? It's normal, you're aging. It's normal, you're menopause. It's normal, that type of thing. And it's like, but he was like feeling worse and worse and worse. I remember my dad actually one time saying, like, I just feel like I'm dying. And we were like, it's like that bad? Like, dad, like that? You feel like it was so much stress in his body. He went to three doctors through different months because it just was not getting better. And all the initial tests said he was somewhat like, because he has some autoimmune things already before. So they're like, okay, well, these things, this medication could cause this, these markers could be like this, but you should be okay. And then 9 months later, as most of you know, they found he is in stage 4 terminal cancer of the lung. There's nothing that can heal it. And so if they had detected it earlier, that might have helped, right? So this is why, and you will always hear stories like this, and it's fine. We're making the best of the situation. I just want all of you to learn to not just blindly trust a blood work test. There are a lot of other things that happen in your body, and how they test for thyroid is sometimes only testing one pathway. How they test for cortisol is only testing one point in time of your cortisol. So as a holistic coach, as a hormone specialist coach, I just ask all of you to be a little bit more cautious. And if you don't feel like something is right, that you actually get a second or third opinion, and keep being persistent at trying to find out what's going on, because a lot of times the issues are a lot deeper, and you don't want to go for a long time without getting the help and one day find out it's terminal cancer in your body, right? So this is something that I just want you guys to understand, is why I'm very passionate about helping you guys understand this. And I really want you guys to learn how to control inflammation in your body. I want you guys to stop the aging process in your body, because it can be fixed earlier. Don't wait until it's too late, until you have visceral fat and metabolic breakdown and huge hormonal dysregulation in your system, right? Just my little 2 cents on blood work is important. I still just don't trust it 100%. Always get a few more opinions. So you have the second test is blood work, and the third is VO2 max and performance testing. This is a functional biological age testing. So you can get tested for this, like cardiorespiratory fitness, strength, muscle mass, grip strength, walking speed, like all of this they can test. And VO2 max is the strongest predictor of lifespan. So if you have a really strong VO2 max, it means you potentially will live longer, because it is used to estimate your biological age in sports medicine. So like how well your system functions, recovers, cardiorespiratory, all of this can determine your biological age. And this is also a really good test, but this one measures what your body currently can do, but it doesn't actually measure full cellular aging at the DNA methylation process level. So this is why I say, so there are 3 levels of biological age testing. There's a DNA methylation process, the most gold standard one, and then you have your regular blood work biomarkers, which are good for general, but you may want to test more. And then there is performance-based, which is VO2 max and performance testing, that can help you with measuring your biological age from the function perspective of how strong is your heart, how good are your lungs, that type of thing. So yes, and so all of these different reports will show different things, but the DNA methylation process will help you with understanding these things in your age. Okay, so if you ever get tested, you can actually test for biological age, inflammation age, immune age, metabolic age, rate of aging, meaning by how fast are you aging right now, mitochondrial age, and organ specific age. You can test how old your organs are. Isn't that cool? Like there's a lot of cool things that you can actually figure out in your body. Okay. So hopefully you find that fascinating. I find it super fascinating. Is like you can test how old your liver is. Those of you who may have maybe in younger years party too much might have an older liver age than you realize, right? So it's not just how old you are on paper, but how is all your organs put together? Really, how old are you inside? Okay. So just to wrap up everything, based on current epigenetics, your biological age is most influenced by one, nutrition quality. Ding, 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 ding. Number one, nutrition. Please work on your nutrition. If you don't understand nutrition well enough, please put nutrition below if you haven't yet. If you've already put it, don't worry, we're going to connect with you, make sure. But if you haven't yet, nutrition is number one. If you go work out a lot, but you don't pay attention to your nutrition, you still are not going to help yourself in a good way, in the sense of reversing your aging or getting like rid of your visceral fat. So nutrition quality. So put that below if that's something you're like, I really need help with nutrition quality. Number two, that influences your biological age is visceral fat in your body. How much visceral fat is in your body? Are you have a lot of fat in your belly? Look down, look at your belly. Do you have a lot of belly fat? That will affect your biological age. And if you don't know how to get rid of visceral fat, it is the most stubborn kind of fat. It is like a stubborn child. It will not go away unless you have many, many methods to calm the system. Visceral fat. If you struggle with visceral fat, put visceral fat. Number three, strength training is the third aspect that affects biological age. Strength training, like how much strength training do you do and how much muscle mass is in your body? Okay, so strength training. Number four is VO2 max. Those who do not like cardio, as I said, you need to still do some because actually your VO2 max matters to your age. So don't just go and strength train and don't do cardio. You still need to do some. VO2 max is important. Number five is sleep, which I spoke about. Number six is stress load and cortisol patterns. Number seven is gut health and inflammation markers. And this is a big one for a lot of menopausal women, which is the gut health and inflammation markers. And number eight is alcohol, smoking, and toxins. Okay, alcohol, smoking, and toxins. Now, some of you, including my own clients, tell me it's just a glass once in a while. Okay, so I'm just gonna smile and say, depends how fast you want to age, right? And somebody's gonna tell me, but there's resveratrol, which is one of the anti-aging compounds in wine. And before you say like that, I'm gonna tell you, you have to drink like gallons of wine to get enough resveratrol in your body. So let's get it through other ways and healthy nutrition. Okay. Some people are like, but alcohol I heard is good for your body. Wine, red wine's good for your body. But let me tell you, if you don't want to age yourself faster, be careful about some of the things that you're putting in your body, right? So those are the 8 factors that are affects your biological age. I'd like to know which one, for all of you to be honest, which one do you think you need the most help with? Nutrition quality, number 1. Number 2, visceral fat level. Number 3, strength training, and put it below. Which one do you feel you need the most help with? Strength training. 4, VO2 max. 5, sleep. Clarice needs help with sleep. I'll just say it now. Number 6 is stress load and cortisol patterns. 7 is gut health, inflammation markers. And number 8 is alcohol, smoking, toxins. Okay. So 8 aspect. Which one do you struggle with most on here? All of you put it below. Type it below. So, and just wrapping up is all of this in all of these pillars of like aging slower, reversing your biological age is 100% possible. You can live longer. You can thank me later when you're living longer, okay? But you need to know how to tackle all of these 8 factors together. And if you don't know how, then I would encourage you to put DNA methodology, because I had spoken about this DNA methodology last week, but it's focusing on different aspects. Like when I say there's different methodologies, like there's DNA methodology and 4-pillar approach, but also my bloat buster methodology. Why? Because different methodologies tackle different fronts, if that makes sense. It's like bloat buster methodology is really tackling into visceral fat. So if you have visceral fat and gut issues, you want to do the bloat buster methodology. If you have, a lot of hormonal imbalances, you want DNA methodology to come in. And then, of course, the implementation of that is my 4 pillars. So they all come together. But without getting too confusing, is if you're like, I just need a system, how to systemize this for myself to reverse my aging, then put DNA methodology below. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful, ladies, and always looking to add lots of value. Share it with others later. The replay, come back, make a comment on it, because we can't save these comments. I get to read your comments later, but it does not repost your comments when I repost it. So have a great night, everyone, and see you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.